Ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the reason he's not fully invested has nothing to do with your looks, your effort, or your worth, but everything to do with a few invisible psychological switches you've never been taught to flip? What if love isn't about chasing, convincing, or proving anything at all, but about understanding how attraction actually works in the human mind? In the next few minutes, you're going to discover why the harder you try, the less it works, and how the moment you stop trying to be chosen, you become impossible to ignore. Ladies and gentlemen, let's clear something up right from the start. Love is not mind control. Attraction is not manipulation. And the most powerful dark psychology is not about tricking someone into feeling something they don't want to feel. It's about understanding human behavior so deeply that you stop chasing, stop forcing, and start becoming irresistible by the way you show up. When people hear the word dark, they imagine games, silence, control, but the truth is, the most effective psychological shifts are subtle, ethical, and rooted in self-respect. And when you master them, something fascinating happens. A man doesn't feel pushed toward you, he feels pulled. The first shift is this: emotional contrast. Human beings don't fall in love with consistency alone. They fall in love with how someone makes them feel over time. If you are always available, always agreeable, always predictable, there is no contrast. Desire lives in contrast. This doesn't mean disappearing or playing hot and cold. It means having a full life, a rhythm that doesn't revolve around him. When you are warm, you are genuinely warm. When you are busy, you are genuinely busy. That emotional contrast creates space for curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway drug to attachment. The second shift is letting him invest. People value what they invest in. This is not about using someone, it's about allowing contribution. When you do everything, initiate everything, solve everything, you rob him of the chance to feel useful, needed, and chosen. Attraction grows when a man feels that his effort matters. When he plans something and you appreciate it, when he shows up and you acknowledge it, his brain starts associating you with purpose and reward. Effort creates attachment far more reliably than perfection ever could. The third shift is emotional leadership. Many people think attraction is about being impressive. In reality, it's about being emotionally grounding. When you are calm in moments of uncertainty, when you don't panic at silence, when you don't spiral at mixed signals, you become the emotional anchor in the dynamic. Humans are drawn to the person who feels steady. If you can sit in discomfort without chasing reassurance, you send a powerful psychological signal: I trust myself. And that trust is magnetic. The fourth shift is selective vulnerability. Oversharing too early feels like intimacy, but it often creates emotional imbalance. True connection isn't built by unloading everything. It's built by revealing layers over time. When you share something personal and allow space for him to meet you there, rather than flooding the moment, you create depth. Vulnerability works when it's intentional. When you choose moments to open up, rather than doing it out of anxiety, you invite him into your world instead of pulling him into your storm. The fifth shift is positive unpredictability. Attraction thrives on novelty. This doesn't mean chaos, it means surprise within safety. It's the spontaneous idea, the unexpected laugh. The way you're not locked into a single version of yourself. When you allow yourself to evolve, to be curious, to try new things, he experiences you as someone who brings energy into his life. The brain releases dopamine not when things are stable, but when something good is slightly unexpected. You don't need to change who you are, you just need to let all of who you are be seen. The sixth shift is boundaries without bitterness. Nothing kills attraction faster than resentment disguised as niceness. When you say yes while feeling no, it leaks out energetically. Boundaries are not ultimatums, they are quiet standards. When you calmly express what works for you and what doesn't, without apology or anger, you demonstrate self-worth. And here's the psychology most people miss. Boundaries don't push the right person away. They make him lean in because he senses that being with you requires presence, respect, and intention. The seventh shift is detachment from outcome. This is the deepest and most misunderstood principle. When your happiness is tied to whether he chooses you, you unconsciously give away your power. But when you genuinely enjoy him without needing him, everything changes. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you trust yourself enough to know you'll be okay either way. And paradoxically, that freedom is what makes someone want to choose you. People are drawn to those who are already whole. Here's what ties all of this together. None of these shifts are about controlling him. They are about mastering yourself. When you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing how you show up, attraction becomes a byproduct. A man falls in love not because you convinced him to, but because being with you feels like expansion, not pressure. He feels more himself, not less. He feels challenged but safe, seen but not consumed. Real influence is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg, it doesn't perform. It simply creates an environment where desire can grow naturally. And when you embody that, love doesn't feel like something you're chasing. It feels like something that meets you where you stand. And when you stand there, grounded in who you are, something else begins to happen beneath. The surface, the dynamic subtly rebalances. You are no longer auditioning for affection, you are allowing connection to unfold. This is where psychology becomes powerful, not because it manipulates, but because it reveals. People are constantly responding to energy before words. If your energy says, I'm trying to secure you, he feels pressure. If your energy says, I'm open, but I'm whole, he feels freedom. And freedom is where desire breathes. One of the most overlooked forces in attraction is self-permission. When you give yourself permission to enjoy the moment without rushing to define it, you signal emotional maturity. Many people try to fast-forward intimacy, believing clarity will create safety. In reality, safety comes from presence. When you're fully engaged in the conversation, the laughter, the shared silence, without mentally jumping ahead to outcomes, you allow chemistry to deepen organically. A man feels that you are with him, not evaluating him, and that distinction changes everything. Another subtle psychological shift is how you respond to uncertainty. Uncertainty is not the enemy of attraction, it's the soil where it grows. When plans are unclear, when communication ebbs and flows, the instinct is to tighten your grip. But confidence shows itself in flexibility. When you can adapt without losing yourself, you demonstrate resilience. You show that your emotional state is not fragile, and that steadiness becomes deeply reassuring. People don't bond with perfection, they bond with emotional strength. Pay attention, too, to the way you receive. Many people are excellent givers but uncomfortable receivers. When a compliment comes, they deflect. When effort is offered, they minimize it. But receiving fully is a powerful psychological cue. When you allow appreciation to land, when you smile and say thank you without shrinking, you teach someone to treat you. You reinforce the behavior you want to see again. And on a subconscious level, he associates you with positive reinforcement, warmth, and emotional reward. There is also power in restraint. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every feeling needs immediate expression. Emotional restraint is not suppression, it's discernment. When you choose when to speak and when to pause, you create depth. Silence, used wisely, allows meaning to form. It gives space for reflection, anticipation, and curiosity. In a world where everyone is constantly explaining themselves, the person who can be present without over-explaining stands out. Another key element is how you handle conflict, or even the hint of it. Disagreements are inevitable. What matters is the emotional tone you bring to them. When you approach tension with curiosity instead of accusation, you shift the entire interaction. Questions open doors that statements slam shut. When you seek understanding rather than victory, you show emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is profoundly attractive because it promises a future that feels safe, collaborative, and respectful. Consistency of self is also crucial. Attraction deepens when your words and actions align. If you say you value honesty but avoid difficult truths, confusion follows. But when your behavior reflects your values consistently, trust forms. Trust is not built through grand gestures, it's built through reliability. When a man senses that who you are today will be who you are tomorrow, his nervous system relaxes. And relaxed connection is where love takes root. Playfulness deserves attention as well. Lightness is not superficial, it's bonding. When you can laugh at yourself, when you don't take every moment too seriously, you create emotional oxygen. Playfulness breaks tension, builds rapport, and fosters intimacy. It reminds both of you that connection is meant to feel good, not heavy. The ability to bring joy into ordinary moments is a rare and magnetic quality. Equally important is honoring your own standards quietly. You don't need to announce them or enforce them aggressively. You simply live them. When something doesn't align, you adjust your behavior calmly. This is where true confidence shows itself. You don't demand change, you observe and respond. And that response teaches others how to engage with you. People rise or fall to the level of access you give them. Notice how all of this points inward rather than outward. The so-called tricks are really inner shifts. They're about regulating your emotions, valuing your time, and trusting your worth. When you stop trying to manage someone else's feelings and start managing your own, you become powerful. Not loud power, quiet power. The kind that doesn't need validation because it knows its value. As this dynamic unfolds, something interesting happens in his mind. He starts to think about you when you're not there. Not because you're withholding, but because your presence leaves an impression. You don't drain his energy, you add to it. You don't complicate his life, you enhance it. And that association becomes strong. Desire is reinforced not by intensity alone, but by how someone fits into your emotional ecosystem. This is also where patience plays a role. Real attachment takes time. When you're not rushing the process, you allow feelings to deepen naturally. Patience communicates confidence in the connection and in yourself. It says, I trust what's unfolding. That trust is felt. And when someone feels trusted, they often rise to meet that trust. Ultimately, the most compelling psychological influence is authenticity paired with self-respect. When you show up as yourself, without apology and without pretense, you invite genuine connection. You're not performing a role, you're living your truth. And the right person doesn't fall in love with a strategy, he falls in love with the way he feels in your presence, the way you see him, and the way you never lose yourself while being with him. This is how attraction transforms into attachment, not through control, not through fear of loss, but through mutual resonance. You become someone he doesn't just want to pursue, but someone he wants to keep choosing, because being with you feels aligned, expansive, and real.